How can a woman who died 10 winters ago walk ashore without a wrinkle or scar? The fishermen saw it first, not the woman. Not yet. They saw the ship. It rose from the depths like a great beast waking, seawater streaming from its black timbers. The hull gleamed impossibly new, each plank fitted tight as a coffin lid. No barnacles, no rot. The storm had passed hours before, leaving the morning sky pale and bruised, but the waves still churned where the vessel surfaced. Old Gunner dropped his net. His grandson tried to speak and found his throat closed. The ship turned toward shore, though no one manned the oars. No sail caught wind. It simply came, steady and certain, until the bow scraped sand. Then she stepped out. The woman wore a gown of deep blue wool, embroidered at the sleeves with patterns only the wealthiest families could afford. The salt water had not touched it. Not a stain, not a thread out of place. Her dark hair fell loose past her shoulders, unbound as only maidens wore it, though the lines of her face spoke of someone older, 28 perhaps, maybe 30. She took 3 steps up the beach and stopped. Gunner's grandson finally found his voice. That's the burial dress, the one they put on Freydis Torvin's daughter. She looked down at herself as if noticing the gown for the first time, her brow furrowed. Freydis, she said slowly, testing the weight of it. Yes, that name is mine. The boy backed away. You drowned. 10 winters passed. We burned offerings for your spirit. Did you? She tilted her head, genuinely curious. I don't remember drowning. Then what do you remember? She turned toward the sea, and for a moment, something ancient flickered across her face, something vast and cold. A voice, she said, deep as the ocean floor. It said, "Rise, daughter of the waves." By midday, the entire village had abandoned the docks. Only the boldest souls watched from their doorways as Freydis walked the beach, running her hands over stones and driftwood as though learning the world anew. She spoke to no one, asked nothing. The living ship sat motionless in the shallows, waiting. When the riders came at sunset, their horses stamped and whinnied, refusing to approach. The king's standard snapped in the wind, a wolf's head on red cloth. Yoren Torvinsson dismounted while his men held the horses. He wore his crown simply, a band of silver across his brow, and a sword at his hip that had seen real use. 10 years as king had carved lines around his eyes, turned his beard from brown to iron gray. He stopped 30 paces from his sister. Freydis, she smiled, and it reached her eyes. You look older. 10 years will do that. His hand stayed near his sword hilt, not threatening, nervous. You look exactly as you did the day we buried you. So I'm told. How? I don't know. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of salt and something deeper, something that made the horses shy again. Joran took a careful step forward. Do you remember the storm, the ship going down? No. The wedding plans, the alliance with Clan Haven? Her expression flickered. Pieces, shadows, nothing solid. Do you remember loving anyone? The question came out rougher than he intended. Family? Friends? Freydis met his eyes. I remember a brother who used to carve horses from driftwood, who taught me to throw a spear, who cried the day our father died. Something in Joran's chest loosened. That brother is still here. Is he? Or is there only a king now, wondering what to do with a ghost? He couldn't answer that, not honestly. Behind him, a woman in leather armor pushed through the guards. Inga Eriksdottir moved like violence, barely leashed, all compact muscle and scarred knuckles. Her blonde hair was tied back in warrior braids, and a captain's torque gleamed at her throat. She stopped when she saw Freydis, and all that controlled power went rigid. Gods, Inga breathed. Freydis stared at her. I know you. We trained together. Inga's voice cracked. Hunted together. You saved my life once pulling me from a river. I don't remember. No, of course not. Inga's hand drifted to her sword, then away. What are you? I think, Freydis said slowly. I'm what's left when the gods give back what they've taken. Not alive, not dead, something else. Joran stepped between them. You'll come back to the Longhouse. We'll find a Volva, someone who understands these things. But you can't stay here. The people are frightened. Frightened of me? Frightened of what you mean. He chose his words carefully. Your return will raise questions, difficult questions, about the past, about my right to rule. I have no interest in your crown. Perhaps not, but others will have interest in using you to claim it. As if summoned by the words, another group of riders appeared on the coastal road. These carried a different banner, a raven clutching a sword, Clan Bloodaxe. Their leader rode ahead, a broad-shouldered man with gray shot through his red beard. Thane Eric had the look of someone who'd killed often and slept well after. He dismounted with the confidence of a man on his own land, though this coast belonged to Clan Torvinson. King Jorund, Eric called. I heard whispers. I confessed I didn't believe them. This is not your concern, Eric. A woman returns from the dead wearing the face of Torvinson's lost daughter, a daughter who was pledged to marry my brother before she drowned? Eric's smile had teeth in it. That seems very much my concern. Freydis watched this exchange with the focus of a hawk. I was promised to your family? You were, Eric said, an alliance to end the blood feud between our clans. Your death broke that promise. My brother died unmarried, killed by raiders your people should have helped us fight. That's not... Joran started. But here you are. Eric ignored the king entirely, his attention fixed on Freydis, returned by the gods themselves. Surely this is a sign we should honor the old agreement. Marry into Clan Bloodaxe. Unite our peoples as your father intended. I don't know your brother, Freydis said flatly. He's dead, but I am not. Eric spread his hands. The alliance can still be forged, unless King Jorund would prefer to refuse the gods' clear will. That seems unwise. My warriors might take such a refusal as an insult. The threat hung in the salt air. Jorn's jaw worked. This isn't the time or place. No, Freydis interrupted. He's right. We should discuss it, but not here. Take me to your hall, Jorund. Let me see what remains of the home I don't remember. Let me understand what I've returned to. And then? Then I'll decide what the gods want from me. That night Freydis stood at the window of the chamber they'd given her. The long house sprawled below, torches marking its perimeter like captured stars. She could hear voices raised in argument from the great hall. Jorund and his advisors, debating what to do with her. The room itself was strange, familiar, and foreign at once. She recognized nothing specific, but her hands knew where to find things. The water basin, the clothes chest, the hidden compartment in the wall where she'd once kept... what? She opened it, found a small knife and a bundle of herbs. Nothing that explained anything. You always hid your valuables there. Freydis spun. Inga stood in the doorway, helmet under her arm. I didn't hear you. I learned to move quietly. You taught me that too, though you won't remember. Inga set her helmet on a bench. I'm supposed to guard you. Jorund thinks you might try to leave, or that someone might try to take you. Which do you think is more likely? Both. Inga studied her with uncomfortable intensity. You really don't remember me at all? I remember the shape of you, like a word I've forgotten but can almost taste. She gestured helplessly. Were we friends? More than friends, less than lovers, something the Skalds don't have a word for. You were the only person who didn't treat me like a weapon to be aimed. You saw me as human. I'm sorry I forgot. Don't be. You died. The question is what came back. You think I'm a draug? A spirit wearing my face? I think the sea doesn't give back what it takes without wanting something in return. Inga's voice dropped. What does it want? Before she could answer, a sound drifted through the window, low and rhythmic, chanting. Both women leaned out. Below, a group of villagers had gathered at the longhouse gates. They held torches and farming tools, their faces tight with fear. Send out the draug, someone shouted. The gods are angered. The fish haven't run since she returned. My daughter took fever this morning. The Death Walker brings plague. Inga swore. I need to disperse them before this becomes a riot. But Freydis caught her arm. Wait, listen. Beneath the shouting, beneath the crackle of torches, another sound wove through the night. A voice, many voices, singing from the direction of the sea. Do you hear that? Freydis whispered. Inga's brow furrowed. I hear the mob. No, the other thing. Freydis closed her eyes. The song grew clearer, words in a language she didn't know but somehow understood. They're calling me, the waves. They want me to finish something. Finish what? I don't know, but I think that's why I'm here. Not for crowns or marriages or politics, for something that was left undone. Inga's hand went to her sword. If you try to leave, I'm ordered to stop you. Will you? The question hung between them. Inga's fingers tightened on the hilt, then released. I don't know, she admitted. Ask me when you're actually running. Freydis smiled for the first time since returning. You were my friend. I can feel that truth even if I can't remember the details. Thank you. For what? For seeing me as something worth saving, even when everyone else sees a monster. Inga looked away. You're welcome, though you might thank me too soon. The council meets tomorrow. They'll decide your fate. What do you think they'll choose? Jorund loves you, but he loves his crown more, and he's terrified of what you represent. Inga moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, the Freydis I knew would never let anyone else decide her fate. She'd take the choice and make it her own. Consequences be damned. After she left, Freydis returned to the window. The mob had grown larger. Someone had started a fire, and the flames painted the longhouse walls with dancing shadows. But she looked past them to the sea. The black ship still sat in the shallows, waiting. The council met at dawn in the great hall, under carved beams that had witnessed 3 generations of Torvaldsen rule. Jorund sat in the high seat, his crown reflecting the morning light. Advisors lined both sides. Warriors, priests, wealthy landowners. Thane Eric stood with his men at the far end, uninvited but impossible to remove without causing offense. They'd placed Freydis in the center like an accused criminal. The question before us, Jorund began, his voice carefully neutral, is what to do with my sister's return. There is no sister, said Harold the priest, a thin man with intelligent eyes. Only a thing that wears her shape. The Draugr are well documented. They rise when their deaths go unavenged or their graves are disturbed. Her grave was untouched, someone pointed out. Then her death goes unavenged, which means, Harold turned to Jorund with meaning, that someone here bears guilt. The hall went silent. Freydis watched her brother's face carefully, saw the micro-expression of fear quickly hidden. Ridiculous, Jorund said. She drowned in a storm. The whole crew was lost. No one is to blame. And yet she returns, Eric's voice carried from the back. The gods send signs for those wise enough to read them. Perhaps they want the old alliance honored. Perhaps they sent Freydis back to complete her original purpose. She's not a bargaining chip, Inga said sharply from her position by the door. No, she's a blessing, Eric smiled, or a curse, depending on how we respond. I say we do as the gods wish, honor the betrothal, unite our clans. Freydis Torvin's daughter weds into Clan Bloodaxe, and we all grow stronger for it. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. Several advisors nodded. The logic was sound from a political standpoint. Jorund's hand tightened on the armrest of his chair. Freydis should speak for herself. All eyes turned to her. She'd spent the night thinking, remembering fragments. The pieces didn't fit together yet, but a pattern was emerging. Now she needed to see it clearly. I have questions, she said. Ask, Jorund replied. Who captained the ship that drowned? Olaf Greybeard, a good man. His whole family mourned him. Who chose the crew? Jorund hesitated. I did. And who decided the route, the timing of the voyage?
The wedding was set for summer. You had to travel before the storms came. But I left after storm season started. Freydis's voice stayed level. I remember that much. Leaving too late. People arguing about it. Why? The hall had gone very quiet. There were delays, Yoren said carefully. Preparations took longer than expected. What kind of delays? Freydis. What kind of delays, brother? Yoren stood up abruptly. This council is about your future, not about dredging up old decisions. The past is done. We must focus on now. But Freydis had seen the answer in his eyes, in the way he wouldn't hold her gaze, in the tension that radiated from his frame. You delayed the journey, she said softly. You waited until the weather turned. You wanted me on the sea during storm season. That's absurd, Harold said, too quickly. Is it? Freydis looked around the hall. A marriage alliance that would have strengthened Clan Bloodaxe, made them equals to us, maybe even gave them enough influence to challenge for the crown when father died. Your father was healthy, someone objected, but old, and my brother was ambitious. I was your rival, not for the crown itself, but for influence. The clans loved me because I fought beside them, because I didn't play politics. Marrying me off removed me from the succession. But if that marriage made our rivals too powerful— Stop, Yoren said. Better I die, better the alliance break, better you take the crown with no complications. I said stop. The king's voice echoed through the hall. Warriors reached for weapons. Inga moved closer to Freydis, though whether to protect or restrain her was unclear. Yoren's face had gone pale. You speak treason. I speak truth. Freydis felt something building inside her, cold and vast as the ocean. The gods didn't return me to live, brother. They returned me to remember, to finish what was left undone. And what was left undone was justice. You have no proof, only the paranoid theories of a Draugr. Then let me return to the ship, Freydis said. Let me walk through it one more time. If I'm wrong, I'll accept whatever fate this council decides. I'll marry Eric. I'll disappear into the sea, whatever you want. But if I'm right— If you're right— Yoren's hand was on his sword now. Then you answer to the gods, and to me. Eric laughed, breaking the tension. This is better than any saga. A sister accuses her king of murder, and he can't even deny it properly. Very well, let her return to the ghost ship. If she finds evidence, we'll know she speaks truth. If not, she's clearly mad, and we can proceed with sensible plans. He said it lightly, but his eyes calculated. A king who murdered his sister was a king who could be controlled through blackmail. Eric saw opportunity in every direction. Yoren knew it too, but he was trapped. Fine, he said. Inga, escort her to the ship, but take warriors. If she tries to sail away— We'll stop her, Inga finished. I understand. As they left the hall, Eric caught Freydis's arm. His grip was iron strong. Clever, he murmured. You've turned my marriage proposal into a murder trial. But know this, if you prove Yoren killed you, I'll demand his crown, and you'll still marry me. A king's widow has value. A return from death king's widow has even more. Freydis pulled free. The sea brought me back for its own purposes. I wouldn't presume to know how that story ends. Neither would I, Eric agreed, but I intend to profit from it regardless. They walked to the coast in silence, Freydis flanked by 6 warriors and Inga. The villagers gave them wide berth, making protective signs. Children were pulled indoors, doors barred. The black ship waited in the shallows, unchanged. I don't like this, Inga said as they approached. That vessel isn't natural. Anything you find aboard might be illusion, lies meant to turn you against your brother. Do you believe that? Inga didn't answer immediately. I believe Yoren isn't capable of murder for power. Most kings are. But I also believe he loved you once. Those truths can exist together. Yes, they can, Freydis said softly. She waded into the surf. The water felt warm, almost welcoming. It lapped at her burial gown without wetting it. Behind her, the warriors refused to follow. Even Inga stopped at the waterline. I can't, she admitted. My body won't move forward. Whatever magic protects that ship, it doesn't want the living aboard. Or it only wants me. Freydis climbed the side, finding handholds that appeared exactly where they needed them. The ship welcomed her like a lover. The deck was immaculate. No blood, no signs of struggle or storm. The mast rose toward the sky, carved with patterns she recognized from her gown. Old symbols, powerful ones. She traced them with her fingers and remembered. Not everything, not at once, but enough. She remembered Yoren coming to her chamber the night before the journey, remembered him holding a cup of wine, insisting she drink to calm her nerves, remembered the taste of it. Bitter. Wrong. She remembered waking on the ship, groggy and confused, remembered Olaf Greybeard's apologetic face as he explained the route would take them through dangerous waters. Necessary, he said. Unavoidable. She remembered the storm appearing from nowhere, too sudden, too perfectly timed. She remembered going under, water filling her lungs, and seeing faces above her, not trying to save her, watching her drown. And she remembered the voice in the depths, "Stay with me, daughter. Stay in the dark and cold. When the time is right, I'll send you back, not to live, but to remember." Freydis opened her eyes, found herself standing before the mast, found the runes carved deep into the wood. They said, Freydis Torvingstetir, daughter of Torvin the Bear, sister to Jorund the Ambitious, drowned by her brother's design. The sea claims her, the sea returns her. Let truth be known. The carving was old, weathered. It had been here since the ship went down. Someone had known, someone had recorded it. She touched the runes, and the final memory crashed through her. Olaf Greybeard standing over her as the water filled her lungs. His lips moving. "I'm sorry, girl. Your brother paid well. It's nothing personal, but he couldn't let you make the alliance, couldn't risk your popularity. This is politics. This is survival." And her own thought, clear as crystal as the darkness took her, "I forgive you, but the gods will not." Freydis climbed down from the ship with the sun directly overhead. The warriors backed away as she approached, making protective signs. Only Inga held her ground. "Well," Inga asked. "He killed me," Freydis said simply. "Poison to make me weak, a bought captain to sail through the storm, hired men to watch me drown. Can you prove it? The runes on the mast, someone carved them, someone who knew, perhaps Olaf in his guilt, perhaps the gods themselves, but they're there." Inga closed her eyes. "Then we ride back, present the evidence to the council, demand justice." "No." "What do you mean, no?" Freydis looked toward the longhouse. Justice would mean execution, civil war. Clan Bloodaxe would use it to seize power. Eric would profit from my brother's death. So I didn't return for that. Freydis felt the certainty deep in her bones. The gods sent me back to break a cycle, not continue it, to offer truth, not vengeance. "That's madness," one of the warriors said. "He killed you." "Yes, and killing him solves nothing. It just creates new feuds, new deaths, new reasons for the next generation to betray each other." Freydis turned to Inga. "Will you take me to the longhouse? I want to speak with Jorund, privately." "He might kill you again." "I don't think he can. Whatever I am now, I'm beyond such simple endings." They rode back in silence. Freydis could feel the weight of eyes on her, the whispers spreading faster than their horses ran. By the time they reached the longhouse, the whole settlement knew she'd found something aboard the ship. Jorund waited in the great hall. He'd dismissed his advisors, but kept his warriors. His hand rested on his sword, and his face had the expression of a man who'd accepted the worst. "Well?" he asked. Freydis walked to the center of the hall. "I know what you did." "The runes?" "Yes."
Jorn nodded slowly. I thought they might be there. Olaf was superstitious, guilty. He probably carved them thinking it would grant him peace in death. Did it work, you think? I doubt it. No, probably not. Jorn sat in his high seat, suddenly looking much older. So, what happens now? Execution? Exile? The clans tearing themselves apart over which of us to support? None of those things. That got his attention. Explain. Freydis took a breath. I remember loving you. Not the memory itself, but the shape of it, the weight. You were my brother, my protector, the person I trusted the most in the world. Until you killed me. Yes, until that. And I remember why you did it. Not the ambition, the fear. Father was dying and the clans were fractured. You were terrified that without a strong, unified rule, everything would collapse into war. And I was in the way. Too beloved, too unpredictable, too likely to cause complications. That doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. But it explains. An explanation is the first step toward breaking cycles. Freydis stopped 3 paces from his throne. Here's what I propose. You step down, voluntarily, name a council of Jarls to rule until the clans can elect a new king through the old ways. I return to the sea. The ship takes me back to wherever I came from. We both disappear from the story. You'd let me live? After what I did? I'd let you live with what you did. That's punishment enough. And it prevents the war. No execution means no martyrdom for your loyalists to rally around. No vengeful sister means no competing claim. Just a king who realized his time was done and stepped aside gracefully. The council will never accept. They will if you frame it right. Tell them the gods sent me back to test you, that you passed by choosing wisdom over pride, that you're preserving the peace by removing yourself from power. Make it noble, make it legendary. The skalds will sing about King Jorund, who loved his people more than his crown. Jorund's laugh was bitter. You always were better at politics than me. Even dead, you maneuver circles around everyone. I learned from watching you, Freydis said gently. The good parts and the bad. Silence filled the hall. Outside, the murmur of gathered crowds grew louder. The whole settlement waited to see if their king would die today. Finally, Jorn spoke. And what about Eric? He'll never accept this. He'll use your proof of my guilt to demand the crown for himself. Let me handle Eric. How? By giving him something he wants more than power. Information. Before Jorn could respond, the doors burst open. Thane Eric strode in with his warriors, all armed and ready. Well, Eric demanded, what did the ghost ship reveal? Does King Jorund answer for murder? Freydis turned to face him. The ship revealed that my death was no accident. It revealed treachery and poison and carefully arranged storms. Eric's eyes gleamed. Then we demand. It also revealed, Freydis continued, that you knew. Olaf Greybeard didn't act alone. He couldn't have arranged the timing without help from both sides of the alliance. Someone from Clan Bloodaxe told him when to sail, when the storms would hit, when to make sure I drowned. That's a lie. Is it? The runes name you, Eric. They say your brother paid Olaf as much as Jorund did. The alliance was already broken before I died. Both sides wanted me gone. My brother because I threatened his crown. Your family because I'd learned something I shouldn't have. What could you possibly have learned? That your clan planned to break the alliance the moment it was sealed, to marry me, gain our resources and trade routes, then assassinate me and blame raiders. You'd have your alliance and your freedom both. Eric's hand went to his sword. Prove it. I can't, not anymore. The people who knew are dead, but the gods know. And they've given me a choice. I can reveal everything, destroy you both, let the clans tear themselves apart in civil war. Or we can all walk away. Jorn steps down. You return to your lands. I go back to the sea. Everyone survives. Everyone moves forward. And if I refuse, then I stay, Freydis said simply. I remain here in this world, neither alive nor dead, and I spend every day revealing truths. I tell the clans every secret, every betrayal, every hidden alliance and broken promise. I burn it all down until nothing remains but ash and honesty. The threat hung heavy. Eric wasn't a fool.
He could see the calculation clearly. You'd destroy everything? The gods didn't return me to preserve the old ways. They returned me to break them, to force change. I'd prefer to do it peacefully, but I'll do it however necessary. Eric looked to Jorund. You accept this? The king met his eyes. I accept that my time is done, and that clinging to power now would only bring more death. So yes, I accept her terms. Then I suppose I do too. Eric's smile was sharp as a knife, though I confess I'd have preferred to see you both destroyed. Of course you would, Freydis agreed. But you're also smart enough to know when you've lost. Go home, Eric. Rule your lands. Find other alliances. The old feuds don't have to define the new generation. He studied her for a long moment. What are you really? The woman who drowned, or something wearing her face? I don't know, Freydis admitted. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Does it matter? I suppose not. Eric gestured to his warriors. We leave at dawn. King Jorund, I expect your abdication to be public and clear. No hints that you were forced. Make it clean. It will be, Jorund promised. After Eric left, the hall emptied slowly. Warriors and advisors filed out, leaving Freydis and Jorund alone. I never apologized, Jorund said quietly. No, you didn't.
I'm sorry. For all of it. The poison, the storm, the 10 years you lost. He looked at his hands. I told myself it was necessary, that the needs of the many outweighed one life, but that was cowardice talking. I was afraid, and I let that fear turn me into a monster. Yes, Freydis said. You did. Can you forgive me? She considered. Not yet, maybe not ever, but I can choose not to destroy you for it. That's not forgiveness, that's mercy, and maybe mercy is enough. Yaran stood and removed his crown, held it in both hands. Take it, he said. I don't want it. I know. That's why you should have it. Give it to whoever the council elects. Make sure they know what power costs. Freydis accepted the silver band. It felt heavier than it looked. What will you do? She asked. After. I have a farm in the north. Small, quiet. I'll go there. Raise sheep. Try to remember who I was before the crown turned me into this. Jorund met her eyes. And you? Back to the sea. Back to whatever purpose the gods have for me. You don't have to go. You could stay, help rebuild. You'd be good at it. No, Freydis shook her head. This world isn't mine anymore. I can feel it, like wearing clothes that don't quite fit. I belong to the waves now, to whatever comes next. They stood in silence for a while. Two siblings who'd been torn apart by ambition and saltwater, finding a strange peace in the ruins of what they'd been. Finally, Yaran spoke. I loved you, before I killed you. I need you to know that. I know, Freydis said. That's what makes it tragedy, instead of simple villainy. That night, Inga found her at the waterline. The black ship waded in the shallows, patient as death. Freydis stood with her feet in the surf, letting the waves lap at her burial gown. So you're really leaving? Yes. When? Soon. Before the council meets. Before anyone can change their minds or complicate things. Freydis turned. Thank you for seeing me as human when no one else could. You were human. Are human. Whatever else you are doesn't erase that. I'm not sure that's true, but I appreciate you saying it. Inga stepped closer. The moonlight painted her face in silver. I never told you how I felt. Before. When you were alive. I was afraid of what people would say, of what it would mean. And now? Now you're leaving, and I'm out of time for fear. Inga took her hand. I loved you. Not as a friend. As something more.
And I think you knew even if neither of us said it. I think I did know, and I think I felt the same, but that was another life, another Freydis. I know. Inga's voice broke slightly. I just wanted to say it once, before you're gone forever. I'm not gone. Not completely. The sea will remember me, and through it, I'll remember you. They stood hand in hand as the waves rolled in. Finally, Inga released her. Go, she said, before I try to stop you. Freydis waded toward the ship. The water welcomed her, warm and gentle. She climbed aboard, and immediately the vessel began to move. No crew, no wind, just the ocean's will pulling it back to the depths. On shore, Inga watched until the black ship disappeared beneath the waves, watched until the surface stilled and the morning sun turned everything to gold. By the time she returned to the longhouse, Jorund had already announced his abdication. The council had gathered in shock, listening as their king explained that the gods had tested him through his sister's return and he had chosen wisdom over pride. He would retire to a quiet life. The clans would select new leadership through the ancient ways. Some protested, others celebrated, but most simply accepted it, as they accepted all things touched by divine will, with reverence and uncertainty. Inga reported that Freydis had returned to the sea, that the black ship had descended into the depths, taking the returned woman with it, that whatever purpose the gods had required was now complete. The skalds composed songs about it immediately. Within a month, 3 different versions circulated to the settlements. Within a year, the tale had spread to every corner of the Norse lands. Most versions agreed on the essential facts. A woman drowned through treachery had been returned by Odin to expose the truth. She had chosen mercy over vengeance, breaking the cycle of blood feuds that had plagued the clans for generations. Then she had returned to the depths, her purpose fulfilled. Some versions claimed she had been a Valkyrie in disguise. Others said she was Ran, goddess of the drowned, testing mortal wisdom. A few insisted she was simply Freydis Torvin's daughter, loved by the gods enough to be granted one final chance to set things right. The truth, as always, was more complicated. 3 months after Jorund's abdication, the council elected a new king, Harald the priest, chosen for his wisdom and lack of military ambition. He proved to be a fair ruler, more interested in trade agreements than territorial expansion. Thane Eric returned to his lands and surprisingly honored the peace. Whether from genuine respect for Freydis' threat or simple pragmatism, he ceased his aggressive posturing. Clan Bloodaxe and Clan Torvinsson maintained cordial, if distant, relations. Jorund disappeared to his northern farm. Some said he lived there still, an old man tending sheep and speaking to no one. Others claimed he'd walked into the sea one winter night, seeking his own reunion with the gods. No one knew for certain, and no one investigated too closely. Some truths were better left ambiguous. Inga remained captain of the guard under the new king. She never married. When asked why, she simply said she was waiting for someone, though she never specified who. On quiet nights, she walked the beach where the black ship had appeared, looking out at the waves as though expecting something to surface. It never did. But sometimes, on storm-lashed evenings, when the wind howled and the sea churned, fishermen reported seeing a ship with black timbers rising briefly from the depths. A woman stood at the bow, they said, watching the shore with eyes that reflected starlight. The sightings were rare, unreliable, the sort of thing that might be tricks of weather and exhausted minds. But the fishermen believed them anyway.
5 years after Freydis' return, a young girl nearly drowned in a riptide. Her mother, frantic, waded into the dangerous surf to save her. The current grabbed them both, pulling them under. They should have died. Instead, something pushed them back to shore,
some force from beneath the waves, gentle but irresistible, depositing them on the sand coughing and alive. The mother swore she'd seen a woman underwater, dark-haired, wearing a blue gown, smiling. The girls said the woman had whispered, "Live well, choose mercy, break the cycles." The local priest dismissed it as delusion brought on by near death, but the mother remembered, and when her daughter grew old enough to understand, she told her the story, told her about Freydis Torven's who had died and returned to teach the clans about forgiveness. The daughter told her own children, they told theirs. The story spread and changed and evolved, as stories do. But the core remained constant. A woman had been murdered by someone she loved. The gods had returned her, not for vengeance, but for something harder, for the choice to break the cycle, to offer mercy instead of justice, to prove that the past didn't have to dictate the future. It was a story about the hardest kind of strength, the strength to forgive without forgetting, to show mercy without excusing, to end feuds not through victory, but through the radical act of letting go of justified anger. 10 years after her return to the sea, Inga stood on the same beach where she'd first watched Freydis walk from the black ship. She was older now, gray threading through her blonde hair, scars from a dozen battles mapping her arms. She held a small carved horse in her hands. Driftwood, weathered smooth. She'd found it that morning on the shore, exactly where she'd been standing when Freydis departed. It was the kind of horse Jorund used to carve for his sister when they were children and the world was simpler. Inga turned it over in her palms, studying the craftsmanship. Then she looked out at the sea. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the reminder, for the mercy, for showing us there was another way." The waves rolled in, gentle and constant. No black ship appeared, no woman with starlit eyes, just the eternal rhythm of the ocean, keeping its secrets. Inga placed the carved horse on a flat stone above the tide line, an offering to whatever Freydis had become. Then she walked back to the settlement, to her duties and her life, carrying the memory like a talisman. Behind her the horse remained. When the tide came in that night, it should have washed away. But the next morning it still sat on its stone, untouched. It remained there for years, decades, long after everyone who had known Freydis personally had died. Long after the black ship passed from witnessed event into legend. The horse stayed, a small wooden reminder carved by loving hands that some truths endure longer than stone, that mercy can be stronger than vengeance, that the hardest battles are fought not with swords, but with the choice to let go of justified anger, that sometimes the gods return what they've taken not to live, but to remember, and that sometimes remembering is enough. The answer to the opening question, how can a woman who died 10 winters ago walk ashore without a wrinkle or scar? Because the gods never returned her to live, only to remember. She came back not as a person, but as a purpose, preserved perfectly because time no longer applied. She walked unchanged because she was no longer subject to the laws that govern the living, only to the will of powers that measure worth differently than mortals do. She returned not to reclaim what was taken, but to release what was held too tightly. And when that purpose was complete, she returned to the depths, leaving behind not a body, but a lesson written in water and memory and the small acts of mercy that ripple forward through generations. The sea keeps what it takes, but sometimes, when needed most, it lends back what it's learned from the drowning, lends it back to teach the living how to breathe in truth instead of choking on old grievances. Freydis Torven's daughter drowned 10 winters before she walked ashore, but what returned was never meant to stay. It was meant to break a cycle, deliver a message, and disappear again into the mystery that sent it. The waves remember her still, and in their remembering, she remains eternal.